Hello, Mom and Dad Meet World. So I want to talk to you today about using the M2 base model Mac Mini today, yes, in 2025. This is it right here. This is the M2 Mac Mini, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage. This is completely the base model. So to give you a little bit of history in case you have not seen our previous videos, we actually bought this same system back when it first came out in 2023. So yeah, very early January 2023, I believe it came out. We had picked it up. We used it for about a year in the hopes that there would be a M3. Ended up selling it, trading it. I don't remember exactly what we did, but we ended up getting rid of it, again in hopes of the M3 Mac Mini. The M3 Mac Mini never came to fruition, so we didn't have a Mac Mini. We just used our laptops, our MacBooks, and that was it until the M4 Mac Mini had come out. And then when the M4 Mac Mini had come out, we actually bought it as soon as it came out. We bought again the base model, except with one little storage upgrade. So we got 16 gigs of RAM because 16 gigs of RAM is now standard with that M4 Mac Mini. Along with 16 gigs of RAM, we upped the storage from 256 gigs to 512 gigs of storage, and that is a model we use. So we end up using that for about a month. Apple was having their extended return policy at that time, so we were able to use it for more than just the 14 days to make sure we liked it, and I really did. I just thought it was about the perfect desktop computer for us and our particular configuration and what we use it for. And so from there was a friend of a friend who was selling their M2 Mac Mini, and they were selling it for about $200, actually $200 precisely, and I picked it up. I figured at worst could either trade it or sell it to see how it would really fare, and lo and behold, ended up hooking it up, and it actually did really well. So well, in fact, that the M4 Mac Mini went back, and then we downgraded, and we've been using this ever since. So we've been using this now for quite a while now. So this has been more or less a daily driver. So it is not our main computer, but again, it's our daily for the desktop that we use. And let me get into a little bit of the use case that I use it for. So when I've got larger work projects that require just a bigger screen, so if I'm using Microsoft Office, I'm working on spreadsheets and they require just that bigger screen, the bigger monitor where I'm not straining my eyes, and multiple documents for work specifically, this is what I will use because of the dual display setup right here. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the other thing too, I also use it for Catalyst Browse. So if I'm stabilizing clips that are shot on this camera that I'm recording on right here, which is a Sony a7 IV, and I want to stabilize those clips a little bit, instead of using our MacBook Pro, we have an M4 Pro MacBook Pro, I will actually use the M2 Mac Mini. And then you might ask, well, why? Well, because the fans do not spin up. I don't hear the fans one bit with this, and because this is a desktop, it's plugged in constantly to power, so I'm not having to worry about battery drain. So I do worry about that because it does drain the battery, and I do hear the fans kick up quite loudly. It kicked up on the M3 Max we had, kicks up on the M4 Pro that we currently use. But yeah, I want to use this because, well, it takes just a little bit longer, but again, I don't hear the fans. I can just run it in the background, and that is pretty much about that. And then when I am on here, I will also occasionally edit videos with Final Cut Pro. And then another use case that we do with this is also, I use this as a file server. So if you've seen our M4 Mac Mini videos, we've actually got this hooked up to a 4 terabyte Crucial P3 Plus with a OWC enclosure. But let me just talk to you about what I've got hooked up here. So in case you are thinking that maybe, well, it seems to be a very stripped down desktop when you think about like a Mac Mini in general, and then you go from the M4 Mac Mini to an M2 base model Mac Mini. This isn't a Pro, this is literally the M2 base model Mac Mini, 8 gigs, 256, lowest configuration you can get. But a little bit of what we've got hooked up here. So we've got a CalDigit TS3. I believe it's a TS3 Plus. We've got the Thunderbolt dock here. That's occupying the first Thunderbolt port. And then next to that, we've also got a HP. It's like a USB-C type of dock, but I haven't done a review on it. I mainly use it because I got it from work for extra USB-A ports, and that's totally fine there. And then from there, we've got a 500 gigabyte PNY external drive. This is just a small, tiny external SSD, and that's what we use for our photos. I've taken the Photos app off of the main drive and just put it onto that external drive. So we're using it for that. We've got that Crucial P3 Plus in that OWC enclosure, 4 terabyte, again used for media and editing off of, along with our file server. So that is hooked up there. And then taking up the other Thunderbolt port are these two Apple Thunderbolt displays. These displays right here are daisy chained, so one is plugged into the other, and then that other one plugs directly into the Thunderbolt port with the Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3 adapter. I've done many videos on the Thunderbolt displays. Great displays if you can find them for a great deal, but that again is taking up the second Thunderbolt display, or excuse me, it's taking up the second Thunderbolt 3 port on this particular configuration. Also, we've got an M audio interface hooked up to this Shure microphone. That is also plugged into it. That's actually hooked up underneath the desk. And then we've got a wired Apple keyboard and then Apple's Bluetooth Magic trackpad that we've got hooked up all to the M2 Mac Mini. So again, this isn't our full-time because we can't take it with us. We can only use it when we are home, but this has been on for days at a time with the M2 Mac Mini because we do use it as our file server. So whenever we are pulling or offloading files from our Sony camera, they go onto that drive, and I'll just grab them or offload them onto that drive right there from our MacBook, and then that is pretty much it. That is the other use case for this, but it's been fast, it's been fluid. So using this for work again with like Microsoft Office, the Office and all of those programs there, we're talking about Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Teams, no problem, no issue using it for that. Web browsing, if I want to watch any digital content on here, whether it be streaming or other type of videos, we can actually watch it on here. It does not slow down one bit. It is fast, it is fluid. And let me get back to a little bit of that video editing with Final Cut Pro. So we're using Final Cut Pro on here, and is it a little bit slower when we are talking about exporting? Yes, it is just about 10% or so slower. So a 10-minute clip to export takes about 4 minutes on the M4 Pro MacBook Pro. On this, it takes about 4 minutes and 40 seconds. So again, about 10% slower. That is not too bad, but that is what it is. And then the other thing you might ask is, well, how about actually using it in Final Cut? When you are scrubbing through the timeline, when you're adding different effects, adding different layers, does it slow down? And in my experience, it is still fluid. It does not hinder my use with this whatsoever. So if you know you're going to be doing something longer than what I'm using it for, which is basically just our YouTube videos, they're about 10 minutes or less or so YouTube videos, it handles that absolutely without issue. But if you think you're going to be doing longer videos, you think you're going to be adding more effects, again, I'm not doing anything crazy on here. We're just putting together our videos, exporting them, uploading them to YouTube, and that is pretty much, other than using Sony Catalyst Browse for the heavy lifting. Everything else is just absolutely fine. No issues again for myself. I'm not editing multiple videos at a time. It's literally one video at a time, and we call it good. But this is all to say that if you are considering it, and especially if you can get the M2 Mac Mini for about $200 to $300, let's just say if you can find it more on the $200 side or even less, then it is a definite buy, and it will still be a little bit of a powerhouse for you, knowing what you may be using it for, and I think you will absolutely be happy with that. And then again, if you or I, if we decide to buy another computer in the future, we can either sell it trade it, and we're most definitely going to get most of, if not all of the money back from this M2 Mac Mini. The M2 Mac Mini, it is mini, it is diminutive, but it fits our needs and our workflow, and I think it's a great deal for what we got it for, and I think it's a great little computer, especially still in 2025, and dare I say beyond 2025. We've got all this stuff hooked up to it, and again, it just keeps going and does what we need it to do. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. Like, share, comment, subscribe. It all helps out our channel. And until next time, thanks for watching. Bye for now.